All right, so the next book that I'm getting rid of, that I have had for over 30 years, or about 30 years, is this book called An Introduction to Language, 6th edition, by Fromkin and Rodman. So let's see what year it was published. Copyright 1998 is when this one was published. Anyway, it's very dense. I enjoyed this book quite a bit. It opened up a new, just a new language to me, in that I realized like that languages had underlying structures that weren't related to that actual language. So learned the phonemic alphabet, which blew my mind, that there were these sounds that underlied everything, and languages had those same sounds, and there was a name for the sound. It didn't correspond to a letter or a language, and that the reason that people had accents was because the phonemes from one language didn't necessarily exist in other languages. And so over time, after adolescence, you just wouldn't hear those sounds because they just didn't exist in your language. So they wouldn't have any importance, they wouldn't have any meaning. So then you wouldn't hear them. So when people who spoke a language different than yours had a sound, a phoneme in their language that you had discarded or never heard, then you would just not hear it. And that's why you can't pronounce things, because you're not hearing the sound, because you're trained to discard that sound, to not hear it. And I loved that. I mean, it made so much sense to me. There was all this underlying structure, so we see the patterns, we can comment on the patterns without the language of linguistics. But there's a reason why people have accents. There's a reason why people mispronounce words. There's different, sounds in different languages, and it just made everything make sense. I loved it. And so, yeah, it was my one of my linguistics classes. Great teacher. I can't remember his name. I think it was Stryker. Was that his name? I think this is a paper from his class. Pretty sure. I could be wrong. This could have been from like a different grammar class that I was taking. But I picked up an article called Eileen Pace Nielsen's Why Keep Searching When It's Already There, Reconsidering Everybody's Pronoun Problem. This was an old article about how there could be used as a gender neutral, which we've already adopted in the year 2026. So, but back in the day, we who studied the English language were trying to be prescriptivist about it. Some people were being descriptivist about it, meaning like they were just, this is what's going to happen. It doesn't matter what academics think. This is a funny article I'm going to get rid of also, but it's very hilarious. How I Met My Wife by Jack Winter. It's a silly thing about morphemes. So, phonemes, sounds, morphemes, parts of words that have meaning. So your language has morphemes in it, which means that there's these little words that mean something, like in English, like, which is a negative or an opposite, or dis is another one, or miss, by meaning to. So these are prefixes, but there's morphemes. The root words of things are morphemes. The endings of words are morphemes, like or, meaning this is a person who does that. dictator, emperor, these people do this. Anyway, so linguistics made a lot of sense to me. Loved it, loved it, loved it. I don't know what a person would do with a master's or a doctorate in linguistics except teach it, and I just don't think that does enough good. It might, though, at this point, because of how quickly language is changing. And the last 20 years I've spent teaching English in a classroom, I have a lot of firsthand experience with how people are changing their language because of the internet, at least in English, but I can imagine that it's happening in every language, just, for example, the adoption of we're in a wild west of language and spellings and meanings, and I can see us just having a huge transition to a new version of English soon. We already are. I would, to where someone born in the 1920s, 30s, 40s, even the 60s might have trouble understanding younger people, even when they are speaking what they consider to be standard English. But anyway, I don't know. Interesting topic. I suggest everyone who's interested in languages of any kind study it. Linguistics. It's really fun. It's like a puzzle. It's very challenging and very fun. Okay, getting rid of the book. Bye.